All right, looks like we are live. Hello, everybody. It appears that there have been a couple of Americans injured as they were distributing aid in Gaza. And so I'm on my way to Israel and got kind of held up. I'm in the airport in Rome at the moment, but I wanted to at least give you a few minutes, give you a quick update on what we know so far about the Americans that were hurt, and let you know about my situation. Because first of all, I got uh, held up, let's say, in it's actually, as it turns out, harder to get out of West Virginia than it is to get into Tel Aviv, believe it or not. Tel Aviv just recently coming off of a completely closed airport, all of the flights canceled, and now they're starting to get flights in there again. I've got a flight to Tel Aviv in about an hour and a half, and I uh, had a much harder time getting out of West Virginia because United can't keep its planes running. And so I had two delayed flights that made me miss connections as I was trying to get over here to Israel. Again, I had to push it off 24 hours. That's why I'm still traveling. I should have been there by now, but I'm in the airport in Rome and just on a layover. So let's get to what's happening. First of all, make sure that you put in the chat where you're coming in from. And I think we're going to have a sponsor for today's video that I'll talk about in a minute, which is Preserve Gold. So just text Chuck to 50505 to learn more about that. We'll talk. I'll just do a quick talk about that in a minute. However, so let's talk about what we know so far about this attack. First of all, two American aid workers were injured in Gaza today, Saturday, in a grenade attack at a food distribution site that they were operating uh, in Khan Yunis. Now, according to reports from this is from Reuters, the two American employees were veterans, highly decorated veterans, according to Fox News, uh, who sustained non-life threatening injuries when two apparently assailants came out of a crowd as they were finishing up the distribution and threw hand grenades at the American aid workers and then turned around and ran right back into the crowd. Why did they do that? Well, because they were trying to elicit a response that would have uh, resulted in the deaths of their own people. This is how cynical Hamas is, and we don't know for sure that it was Hamas that did it. That nobody's taken responsibility for it, so it could be PIJ or some other militant group, but it's likely. I mean, it's kind of potato, really at this point. These guys stepped out of a crowd of people, threw grenades at the aid workers, and then ran back into the crowd of people, which means that the aid workers can't shoot back for obvious reasons. Apparently, their rules of engagement won't allow that. And just understand, far beyond the danger that it poses of having grenades thrown at you, the fact that you can't fire back at assailants because they're in a crowd of civilians is even more dangerous. It puts you at even more risk because what it tells uh, Hamas is, aha, this is a way that we can attack these guys. Now, the two Americans who sustained injuries, they were non-life threatening. They're now in stable condition are receiving medical care. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said the attack involved those two assailants. They threw Iranian made grenades. And I've got a picture of the grenades. So let's take a look at those. Well, this is what's left, right? This is some of the shrapnel. The the blue thing with the writing on it on the left is the spoon for the grenade. So when you go to throw a grenade, it has a spoon on it. You pull the pin, you let the spoon fly, it's spring loaded, and then that starts to fuse. You get about between 2 and 4 seconds to get rid of that grenade. The striker for the grenade is at the top of the photo there, and the sort of angular piece on the left of the striker is where the spring-loaded component is that fires the fuse. The fuse would screw into the top of the grenade, which is on the right, what's left of it, and then would go down into the grenade. Then you see these small steel balls here. They're usually embedded in some sort of plastic matrix inside the grenade. And that's so these components here, especially the writing there, tells us that this was an Iranian made grenade. So if you wonder, where are Hamas fighters getting grenades? Well, there's more proof, as if you needed any, that they are getting their grenades from Iran. Okay, so Prime Minister Netanyahu officially condemned the attack and expressed well wishes for the Americans, and then urged the United Nations and world leaders to stand against the violence. Now, this is the thing that is so frustrating about this. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was founded in America, supported by the American government and the Israeli government, to bring food directly to the Palestinians in Gaza and not give it to Hamas. They have been very successful to date at that. They've now given out more than 60 million meals inside Gaza. And if you go to chuckholton.com and look at a video I put up of Gazans on the beach, just yesterday, I think I put that up there. What you'll notice is those people are not starving. It's hard to find video or photographs out of Gaza that show people who look like they're actually hungry. There are quite a few photos you can find of Gazans who are still obese inside Gaza. So there's plenty of calories getting into Gaza. No two ways about that. And Hamas desperately wants to control that flow to its own people so that it can make money and control the people. The people are very happy to get out from underneath that, or at least they're very happy to get free food. And so they're going against what Hamas is telling them to do, which is to not go to these distribution sites, and are getting food from the distribution sites. Now, there have been multiple attacks against the civilians that are trying to get this food, where Hamas has tortured, beaten, shot, and even killed its own people to try to dissuade them from going to these distribution sites and getting the food from GHF. But there are still hundreds of thousands of people every day who are doing it. And, you know, Hamas has the same problem Israel has. You just can't kill them all. So with that in mind, Hamas is trying to, they're putting out videos all the time, or not videos, they're putting out statements claiming that the GHF is killing people at these distribution sites, that the IDF is shooting people at these distribution sites and dropping bombs on them, all this sort of thing. Look, that would be dramatically against the objectives of the IDF and the GHF at this time. There is no motivation for the IDF to be killing civilians in the very place where they're trying to feed the civilians. So I'm not saying that there haven't been any civilians killed, because what happens is the IDF is pulling out the external security for these distribution sites and are sort of the outer ring of security that people have to pass through. And that's fraught with risk. The IDF has made it very clear to the people in Gaza that they should not approach IDF positions. So if the IDF has a fighting position or a blocking position or a guard position or something, uh, they don't want people walking up to their positions. Well, if people start to do that, then the IDF will typically shoot in the air to scare them away. If they get too close, then they have apparently the right to open fire. Now, it it is a real tightrope that Israel is trying to walk here, and they're doing a very good job at it. They've been doing a very good job at it, but the media tries very hard to accept everything that Hamas says and just do whatever they can to make the IDF look bad. And so this is just more of the same. Okay. Now, it is interesting that the United Nations has forbade all of its people, forbade all of the organizations that work with the UN to do any business whatsoever with GHF. Okay. Just a second. That's my flight, so I gotta go pretty quick. But anyway, I'll just say this: I find it very interesting that the uh, that the UN is telling everybody they can't have anything to do with the GHF. However, Hamas is also telling them the people the same thing. You can't have anything to do with the GHF. And Hamas wants they're in their statements they want the UN to be giving out the aid and not the GHF. That should tell you something, shouldn't it? If Hamas is for the United Nations giving out aid, then we should immediately be against it. We should it's a foredrawn conclusion that the United Nations is supporting Hamas when they give out the aid. There's no two ways about that. Okay, so Hamas, for their part, announced in a statement on Friday night that they delivered a quote unquote positive response to mediators over a new Gaza ceasefire proposal. Now, that is not an agreement to a ceasefire. That is a agreement to start talking about potentially thinking about maybe moving toward the direction of creating a framework that might one day lead to the possibility of talks about a ceasefire. That's what we're talking about. A spokesman for the Palestinian Islamic Jihad movement also said the militant group is engaged in discussions with Hamas on the ceasefire and had presented detailed suggestions for its implementation. The conditions that Hamas is setting are ridiculous, patently ridiculous. They get to keep some of the living hostages. They don't have to give all the living hostages up. Even after the end of the war, they get to keep some living hostages. That right there is like, forget it. The IDF has to leave Hamas in control and withdraw from the Gaza Strip completely. I mean, these are the same kinds of ridiculous demands that Hamas has been making all along. All of those things are non-starters with Israel. So they also requested the withdrawal of the Gaza Humanitarian Fund from the whole region, from all of Gaza, and advocated that the United Nations and other international organizations continue to oversee the aid distribution. So again, if Hamas is begging for the UN to distribute the aid, that ought to tell you everything you need to know about why the UN should not be distributing the aid. Point, period, end of story. It also urged the mediators, which is the United States, Qatar, and Egypt, to ensure that Israel will not initiate military operations against Gaza after the 60-day ceasefire expires, and that both sides will continue negotiations aimed at achieving a permanent ceasefire So that would mean if Israel has to agree that there's no chance that they will resume any kind of hostile military operations after the initial 60 days, well, then what you're talking about is a permanent ceasefire. I mean, ipso facto, it's a permanent ceasefire. And that would leave Hamas in control, which just can't happen. They, in return, are saying they would give up 10 living hostages, which is about half of what's left, and later on 18 of the bodies of deceased hostages in return for uh, this agreed upon 60-day ceasefire. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be meeting with Donald Trump in the coming, like what, day after tomorrow in Washington, D.C. And a lot of people think that President Trump is going to use the opportunity to try to force Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire that would essentially be a loss for Israel. And this is just because it's very clear that President Trump wants desperately for at least one of his peace programs to work out. He wants to be able to say that he brought peace someplace. And so far, that hasn't happened. His 24 hours to stop the war in Ukraine, not so much. His ability to bring peace in Israel, so far, not so much. And the sad thing is, let's hope he doesn't do this. And I'm not saying that he definitely is. I'm just saying that this is what is being reported, that he may be about to resort to the same tactics that Joe Biden resorted to in trying to end the war, which is, okay, Hamas is unreasonable. We can't deal with Hamas. So we're just going to have to put more pressure on Israel until Israel caves, because Israel's the only reasonable party in this negotiation. Unfortunately, that would be a loss for Israel, and I don't think Israelis could stomach that. Now, there are groups of people in Israel, families of those who are still held hostage and things like that, who are out there protesting even now in Tel Aviv, saying, bring them home now, bring them home, make a deal, make a deal, make a deal. And they're out in the streets, and they have been since the beginning. And I guess I wouldn't expect anything less. If it was my kid being held in there, I would feel like it would be my duty to my son to get out there in the street and say, bring him home now. But in the greater scheme of things, it's very clear that it is likely not the best option for Israel to make a deal to bring these guys home if that deal means that more hostages will be taken in the future, that Hamas still exists. And right now, Israel controls about 65% of Gaza. In so doing, they are squeezing people into a smaller and smaller area, and they are making it very plain that they intend to hold the area that they currently control in perpetuity. They're not going to give it back up again. The reason is they want to have a buffer zone between the Gazans and them to make it much more difficult for another October 7th to happen. Okay, so before I move on, I just wanted to very quickly go over, hang on, just wanted to very quickly, I just lost it. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Okay. I wanted to talk about gold IRAs because, as I said, Preserve Gold is our sponsor today. We got over 1,000 people online. You can go to preservegold.com. This is a look at their website, or text the word Chuck to 50505 and find out more about them. The reason I wanted to talk to you about that is, see, I was a stockbroker for 10 years in Washington, D.C., And I sold a lot of 401ks and a lot of IRAs. But if you've got a traditional IRA or 401k, most of your retirement savings are likely tied up in the stock market. And that's great until it isn't. The markets go up and down. Obviously, when things are crazy in the world, that usually isn't great for the market. And so there's a good chance that the market could go down at any time. Now, gold, on the other hand, has been used as a medium of exchange, real money, for thousands of years. It doesn't rely on mood swings from the Fed or some latest experiment with AI on Wall Street. It just is. It's just there. And right now, with inflation and all the global instability we see, might be time for you to consider diversifying a part of your IRA or your retirement into something tangible. That's where gold IRA comes in. A gold IRA lets you roll over a portion of your existing IRA or 401k into physical gold, real coins or bars. And it's held securely in a vault and still protected by all the same tax advantages that your regular 401k or IRA has. And it's a strategic shift inside your retirement plan. Look, if you're over 65, you ought to be moving to things that are a little less risky than keeping all your stuff in stocks. And Preserve Gold can walk you through how to do that. Now, I've been buying gold for many years, and I do it because it's wealth you can hold. It gives me peace of mind to know that I've got some wealth there that nobody can get to. Preserve Gold makes it simple. They can mail the gold to your house as long as it's not in a gold IRA or something like that. There's no hidden fees or sales pressures, and they're just they're great people, and they genuinely want to help. That's the sense I get from them. Right now, they're offering a free wealth protection guide that explains everything in English, plain English, including how to move your retirement into a gold IRA, tax-free and penalty-free. And you could get up to $15,000 in free gold if you qualify. So text Chuck to 50505 to get yours. Start taking control of your future today. All right. So that's all I got to say about that, folks. Again, just to recap for you, we had this. This is the first known incident today that involves direct targeting of Americans in Gaza. But Hamas has been offering rewards for anybody who would kill American humanitarian workers inside Gaza with the GHF. They've been offering rewards for that. And this follows earlier airstrikes and again, there are reports of deaths near the aid sites. So far, not that nobody has been, there haven't been any civilians killed near these sites that are handing out the aid, but there have been at least 3 cases that I know of in the last couple of weeks where the mainstream media is reporting 81 people were killed as they were going to get aid from the GHF. And then it turns out that, oh, actually not. It turns out those were recycled headlines. GHF has video cameras up everywhere at around their sites. And so whenever these stories come out about aid workers or the IDF killing people that are going to get the aid, GHF just releases the tapes and shows that, nope, that didn't actually happen. So I've talked about this since they first started talking about these aid distribution sites run by an American organization, that they would be a target for Hamas, and that that Hamas would weaponize the people against the people giving out the aid by doing whatever they could to cause civilian injuries and deaths. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So you got to stay clear-eyed about this, folks. You you can't let yourself get swayed by. I keep hearing people say, the IDF is genociding Gazans. I don't think you know what that word actually means. The IDF, genocide means to attempt to wipe out an entire people group. The IDF is doing everything it can to feed those people, not kill them. They're warning them before they strike places and telling them to get out of the way. There are more Palestinians in Gaza now than there were at the beginning of the war. This is not a genocide in any way, shape, or form. It's just not. I'm sorry. If that makes your tummy hurt, well, too bad, because it's just not true. All right, folks. Thank you for praying, and be praying for the meeting between President Netanyahu and President Trump on Tuesday or Monday, I guess. And just pray that there will be wisdom in that meeting. All right. Now, I'm sorry to keep you or to cut off so quickly, but I've got to run and I'm going to miss my flight. I will be in Tel Aviv in about 5 hours. And so I'll be reporting live from Israel for the rest of this month. So you want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel here by hitting the subscribe button here on YouTube. And go over to chuckholton.com. You can get lots of extra content over there by becoming a supporter, and you can help keep me in the field doing what I do. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. Please like and share this podcast, and we'll see you next time. Take care.